So, welcome back to Epic Begins with One Step Forward with the amazing, the one and only Xander Sprague. Rhymes with egg, that you know how to pronounce it, and so do I. And I'm your host, Aurora Winter. And I'm so excited about the show that we have for you today because this is all about how to enjoy the journey. I think this is something that we all need more of. But before we get into the amazing content that Xander has to share with us about how you too can enjoy your epic journey, let's quickly find out what happened in the past week with Xander and his progress on becoming a #1 internationally acclaimed speaker and author. Never mind the fact that we're dealing with the pandemic right now. So what's been happening over the past week, Xander?
As always, pushing forward with the progress. I haven't perfected it yet, but working on creating a schedule for myself on a daily basis so that I can understand what I should be working on and when I should be working on it. It's all part of what we talked about, how to achieve, have a plan on how to achieve it. It's great to say, I have all these plans, but got to be able to achieve it. I'm working on my vision board. So trying to collect pictures of the things that I want to put on there. And I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but I have a new URL, which I'll talk about in just a bit, that is obviously for everyone. It's really cool. So.
Very good. And what have been the challenges? If you got any challenges for the past week that you want to share with others that can help them deal with similar setbacks?
I think we have those days and or weeks where it's just, you're good for a couple hours of doing stuff, but then you just let yourself get squirreled and distracted by stuff that isn't actually pushing you forward, or you're just not feeling all that motivated. And I pay attention to that because there are times where I'm trying to be creative and it's just not happening. So it's okay to stop. But there are other times where I need to push through and say, no, I just need to get this done. And for me, I've talked about that feeling of closure on something. I've started a process. I want to make sure I close that circle, that I complete it, even if I have to push my way through it. This morning I was on my Peloton doing a class, and it's really dying, I gotta say. I just wasn't feeling the exercise. I was a little tired, but as I'm doing that, and then I look to see how much longer I have, and I have just under half the class left. And I still pushed through, even though I'm just not feeling it. I just pushed through and got done the class and felt really accomplished for doing that.
Oh, good for you. I noticed that with myself a couple of days ago. I went for my usual walk. I'm going for walks and then I'm running up and down stairs a number of times that my legs are getting stronger. But I quit before I finished. And I thought to myself, no, that's not okay. I don't want to train myself to quit. I
Yeah.
want to know that every time I go for my walk or my jog, I finish it so that it's not even tugging at my brain. So I really appreciate that you brought that up. And then you get the pleasure of ticking it off your list that you did your Peloton or I did my run or whatever.
Absolutely. And I also think, but there are times where, and I think there's that balance where it just isn't going to work. Whatever, if I'm trying to write something, writing is challenging, and there are times where I'm just not in the right headspace to write what I need to write. I could get stuff written down, but it's not going to be good. And so walk away for 10 or 15 minutes, go do something completely different, come back and try and recenter yourself.
I find if I push myself to do 8 hours of creative work in a day, the last 2 hours I'm going backwards. Things, but not something that really demands your full concentration. All right, so let's hear about how people can really enjoy their epic journey.
Absolutely. As I was thinking about this, I thought it's great to say enjoy the journey. It makes sense. But how do we do that? I think the first thing, Aurora, is pay attention to what is around you right now. All too often we focus on getting to that end point. And yet your journey, there's so many epic things around you that you may just miss because you're so got the blinders on, so focused. And I'd like to say, don't forget to look around often. And when I was younger, I had been over in Australia studying, and then I took time and was traveling through New Zealand and some of the South Pacific. And I was really focused on getting from Christchurch down to Queenstown because I was going to go bungee jumping. And it was like on my bucket list, and I was so focused on let me get there, and I had to take this bus ride. And New Zealand is a spectacularly beautiful country. To not pay attention to that would be a travesty.
Mm.
And so I did look around. And at one point, the bus stopped for a rest stop, and we were at Fox Glacier, which is just amazing. It was just so incredible. And I went to go take a picture of it. And it was one of those moments in my life where a picture just wasn't going to capture it. Looking through and having this when there's all of this, just like I took a couple of pictures, but I'm like, when I showed it to people when I got back and stuff, I was like, you have no idea. I'm embarrassed by these pictures because they just aren't capturing everything. Really look around. Had I not really been paying attention, I would have missed all the spectacular scenery around me that I was going through as I was focused on getting to where I wanted to go. And I think all of us need to just look around.
Because we can get so caught up on the destination that we forget that the journey can be fun too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also want to encourage people that every once in a while, reflect on how far you've come. Some of our epic journeys are multi-year journeys. And there are times with any epic journey where maybe it's more challenging or whatever. So you need to stop and say, look at how far I've already come. I've got more to go, but look at what I've already accomplished. And I think that's really important because we're always so focused on getting there. And that is important. But I think appreciating how far you've come already. You were talking, Aurora, about walking and running up and down the stairs, right? And you may have a goal that you're trying to reach for, but pay attention to the progress you've already made. I feel stronger. I'm able to walk a little. I notice that my walk times are coming down. I notice that my legs aren't so sore in the morning, whatever.
Well, I'm looking right now at your Epic Begins with One Step Forward logo, which has got the beautiful mountain and the sun behind it and the beautiful sunset colors or sunrise colors.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me, like, we're so often looking up to how much farther it is to the peak, but you're not on the savannah anymore. You're not on the plains. Look back down when you're halfway up the mountain and enjoy the view. You're so right. And I love that your logo reminds people of that too.
Absolutely.
How else can people really enjoy their epic journey?
I think share your progress with others. A trip is so much more fun when when you get to share it. I've been very fortunate to travel to many places. And part of the fun is getting to enthusiastically share places that I've been able to see. And maybe other people will get motivated and want to go see that too. A good friend of mine from high school, when I went to Australia, I took a picture of the Southern Cross. And it was that Crosby, Stills and Nash song, Southern Cross. We liked it in high school. And so I said, I saw the Southern Cross and you got to come see it sometime. And he was really motivated by saying, I too want to see that. So he found a way to be able to travel into Australia and stuff. And he said later, many years later, that part of it was he didn't want to miss out getting to see the Southern Cross.
Isn't that interesting how one comment inspired somebody else to do something so huge?
Absolutely. And then talk to new people and share your epic. You never know who can help you. And I keep rediscovering this as I'm sharing the epic journey that I'm on right now in writing the book and creating this Epic Begins program, that as I share that, I find that there are new people that I want to interview and get their perspective.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't happen if I wasn't sharing it. When I met new people, I didn't get curious about what they're doing. because they may be on their own epic journey and they've had no one to talk to about it. And then they find the God of enthusiasm who says, oh my God, that's great, tell me. And when we're on our journey, we're going to meet new people. Share it. You never know. Someone may have something that like totally changes your life in a positive way that allows you to go even further, be even bigger, even bolder.
Or you may change their life in an amazing way, as you are likely doing.
Sure, absolutely. Also, remember that part of sharing is engaging with other like-minded people. So connect and engage, find new communities. If they don't exist, create them. And along that line, epicbeginsnow.com. That is going to be the place where we can all connect, where we can support each other, where I'll be hosting meetups and stuff like that. I just came up with this idea today, so I don't have it all down right now, but I'll talk about it more in the coming weeks and months and years. But epicbeginsnow.com, that's going to be the place where we can go and share our epic journeys.
I love that. That's such a key way to keep momentum going, because sharing is one of the keys to happiness. I don't know, in Western culture, we seem to really like to have the idea that we do everything alone, but that's not true. A key to happiness is connecting with others. So epicbeginsnow.com will be such a great place for people to say, hey, I've got a new epic goal, and they can cheer each other on, or they can say, hey, I've had a setback, and you can, keep the ball and keep the momentum going. Fabulous.
And the last thing I want to talk about in the whole sharing is share the book.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great book. Share it with some other people, right? Because everyone's got an epic journey and they may not even really have conceptualized what their epic journey that they want to go on. But hopefully this book will help motivate them and show them a possible path that they can take to get to begin their own epic journey.
Absolutely. And then people could be their each other's accountability buddies. They could start a little mastermind group using the book as focusing on one chapter a week, for example, and they could really celebrate each other and inspire each other to take even bigger epic steps. I love it.
Absolutely. Now, another part of enjoying the journey is to realize that detours are part of the journey. Interruptions, detours are to be expected. Many years ago, I was able to travel with a student group in Morocco, and we went down into the Sahara Desert. And I'm talking about like into the desert. We were camping on the sand and stuff. And we were supposed to go even further down to this town called Tinfu, which is right on the border of Morocco and Algeria. And we were loaded up into the trucks that were going to drive us down there. And we started to drive, and then we had to stop. Because it turned out that this particular area, there was a bit of a difference of opinion of in what country this actually was, it Morocco or Algeria, kind of a border dispute of sorts. And so no fighting was going on, but there was a lot of tension. And the last thing they wanted was 40 American people, mostly school-age children, going into an area where there was some tension. So we had to stop and we had to turn around and we had to go back to where we were and that whole plan. But it was still an amazing trip. And so that detour happened. Okay. That interruption happened. Okay. There are, if you're traveling, if you've ever traveled by train or bus or airplane, you miss connections. Stuff happens. Try and anticipate stuff, but also realize it's part of the journey. See what positive you can pull out of that. Oh my gosh, I missed my plane. Now what do I do?
Exactly. With an open mind, the detours can provide surprising delights that you hadn't even expected.
And that kind of gets into my next point, which is roll with it. Now, what's funny is I was lucky enough to, when I was in school, there was a teacher there who was a literally, he was a world adventurer. He took us on these trips over spring break. I went to Venezuela, into the jungle. I went to Morocco, into the Sahara Desert. He did these fabulous trips. But in the summer, he did trips with kids, a van trip, and they go to different places. And I went for the month of August. We drove from Boston up to the Pacific Northwest, and we were in Washington. We went to Oregon. Total side note, I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but you talk about roll with it. One of the people who was on the trip, his dad was an architect and was doing work at Rajneeshpuram, which is in Antelope, Oregon, and the Bhagwan Rajneesh was this huge thing. And there was a very interesting Netflix special all about the Bhagwan. Were they stealing money? And there was a lot of, it's very interesting. But I got to go in and I got to see this whole thing. I was 13 years old and I saw the Bhagwan drive by in his one, at that point he had 30 Rolls Royces, and every day at 2:30 he drove by and everyone lined up, and it was this huge thing that he would come by and stuff. And that was totally unexpected, but totally cool. And then later on, I'm like, oh my God, look at that. I've been there. I know that. But on this trip, as we were coming back, we were in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we got to do this walk, and you could choose how far you wanted to go. And I chose 7 miles, and there were 3 other young boys who were walking with me. And we came to this fork in the road, and we didn't know which way to go. So I go up to a house and I asked, it's funny how sometimes the way we ask a question gets us an answer, and we don't get the answer that we actually wanted because we didn't ask the question properly. So I asked, does this road go to, I can't even remember where I had to go. Yes, it did. My 7-mile walk turned into a 14-mile walk.
Oh, no.
Because I didn't say, is this the quickest way to get there?
Right.
I asked the question, and I don't think it was like one of those times where it was a local person going, well, I'm just going to give you a straight answer like they do in the state of Maine, where they go, does this road go to Bangor? Road don't go nowhere. You know, I mean, that's a big joke in Maine, but I didn't ask the right question. But I had to roll with it. Here I am, I'm walking. All of a sudden I found out I just doubled how far I was going to walk.
I bet that made you very popular with the other boys walking with you.
We weren't pleased.